All right, guys. Welcome to another episode. Uh, in this one, we are hanging a barn style door. That's the hardware there. This is the opening it's going in, and here is the door. That's the door already painted. Painters have already painted that. We're planning on it sliding, mounting here, sliding this way. Um, Although you might think to slide it this way, we think that's most likely where the TV and entertainment center or stand is going to go, and the bed will actually go in this area. But this is the same house that I did this shower in, and this one's almost done. And here is the hardware for the door. This is the Barn Craft Collection. So it comes with the rollers here, a rail, adjustable floor guide, brackets that push this off of the wall a certain amount, and the stoppers, and I'm not sure what the Okay, so taking apart, this is the first barn door I've ever installed. Um, the directions that came with this thing were basically just a diagram showing it going together. And there was another diagram kind of showing the soft close features. Um, so two mistakes that were made with this door. The first one is when I added up all of my dimensions to try to get the right height, somehow I was off by 3/4 of an inch, so I had to basically delag the the wood support, the ambrosia maple strip that looks like a 1x4. Had to take that down, drop it down 3/4 of an inch. Um, yeah, and I think if I remember right, the reason I did that was because we wanted like an inch gap under the door, so for airflow. But then um, the the bottom guides that has at the bottom of the door to keep the door from slamming into the wall and kind of moving freely. Um, those kind of worked best, I think, with like a three quarter or less height. So I did end up having to move it. So, and I don't think that was the issue. I think the issue was at first I somehow I just mismeasured something. So, um, and then the second problem was the soft close feature. Okay, for that to work, the door has to be a certain height from the rail because the soft close features attaches to the rail, and the clip that sits on top of that door um, has to be a specific height, and I think it's probably about a half inch or less. So there was no indication anywhere in the directions that nothing that jumped out at me, and when I'm looking at the directions, I'm trying to think as far ahead as I can. I'm trying to determine any problems that I might run into, but these directions were pretty bad. Um, so given that we did install it, it doesn't have the soft close feature, which would have been nice. We probably could have made a spacer like I said, about a half inch thick. That would have put my hardware high enough to actually run into those tracks. So that was probably the biggest mistake made. Um, the soft close feature would probably be really nice because then you could just stand there and kind of throw it open and probably throw it shut instead of having to open the door very carefully and close the door very carefully. So I'm sure that gets old, But I think most people, when they're using that bathroom, because it's in the, it's in the master suite, they're probably just going to leave the door open unless, for whatever reason, they need a little bit of privacy. Because there is also a toilet in the master, and it has its own door, so you'll probably keep it open all the time, and it'll be mostly decorative. So here, my go-to trick is to always lay everything out on tape. That way I can do hundreds of marks, and if I find that some of those marks are wrong, I can I can lay it out again, or I can pull new tape. And so basically what I'm doing is, my track is X amount of length. Okay, I don't remember what it was, maybe 84 inches. So the wood that we cut, we knew we wanted that about 2 inches longer on each side, just to keep it nice and tight to that system. So I added 2 inches for each side of that. And then also, if you see the little blue pieces of tape on the wall, that's marking my stud locations. Also there, so basically there's two sets of holes. Okay, you have the lags that come with the kit, that basically the track that they give you, those holes are basically set in stone. They're spaced evenly and perfectly, and that's what you have. So if you don't have blocking back there, you're going to need another set of lags that are going into some studs. Now, you could probably do heavy duty drywall toggles. The heaviest form of those would probably work. Although it does always make you feel better when you're attaching straight into wood. So here I'm attaching, these are 4-inch lags, pretty heavy duty. Basically just getting all those in there, making sure I'm level. I try to get these spaced fairly evenly, but not much you can do if you gotta hit the stud. Not much you can do. Now, what you can do is, if you're hitting 3 or 4, it's okay to put in a false one to make the spacing look even, or so basically, as long as you have enough to hold the load, you don't have to hit wood on every one. If you need to put a false one, or if you need to do something else to make it look pretty, you can go ahead and do that. So at this point, I have the lags in there, and then I also have the other holes laid out for basically for this thing here. So yeah, I ended up putting my tape on that metal bar, or you could just lay it on the wood strip and center it, mark the holes, which I think I might have done for that one. But with anything, measure twice, cut once. Make sure you're laid out in the middle of that, wood there. So at this point, this is where the error was made. So in my mind, I'm thinking, basically we'll just center that roller right on the door, because I know there's solid wood back there. So you would think, okay, I'll just center it on there. But that would have been the point at which the height for the soft close would have been set. So actually, my roller should have been mounted maybe up to an inch, 3/4 of an inch lower on the door, which would have put the door top closer to the top of the rail, which would have put it within range for that soft close feature. So just keep that in mind. If you do have a soft close feature, that height is going to be specific. So when I first started out, how I figured out what height I was going to use. I basically measured the door. I took the hardware. I measured from the hardware roller to where it was going to sit on the door. So basically, I was just adding up, I think, 3 or 4 numbers. But maybe an easier way to do that is to take the door like I have it here, set it up in front of the bar, put a block underneath it so you have your proper spacing, and then maybe you can set the roller on the door, and kind of, you might be able to lay things out like that. Either way, there's going to be a little bit of math involved, and double check it before you kind of finalize things. So another thing I did run into is this kit, I believe, is made for a specific door, and I think that door was thicker than a normal door, so I believe most of these doors are 1.5 inches. When I tightened up the bolts on those rollers, there was still a little bit of play. We had to add, I think, 3 washers to get that to tighten up. It wasn't a big deal, but when you roll the door and you hit your stoppers, there's a little bit of play in the door. So once we put the washers on there, the door was acted as one solid piece rather than the door kind of swinging from the rollers. So be careful when you're putting in the hardware. This has a matte black finish, and if you're rough with the insulation, you're going to ding up your nice matte black finish. So be careful when you're using the wrenches or your socket wrenches or whatever you're using. So at this point, I'm putting in the stoppers. Those are adjustable. They got an Allen wrench. They sit on top of the track. You basically just, as long as you have your track roughly in the areas where you want it to close all the way and open all the way, you can adjust those several inches. So if you want it to stop at a specific point and open up at a specific point, it's not hard to do that. So I do recommend using a bit driver, so you can use your socket wrenches with your impact for most of it, and then the things you want to be more delicate with, you can just use your hand socket wrench. So at this point, I am installing the floor guide. Basically, you want your door to hang freely. Those guides are, you got one for the interior side, one for the exterior side. Once you put them together, you have just a little bit bigger than the door width. So those need to be, pretty much perfect, but it's not hard. You just slide a door over, put the bracket in, make sure it's not touching or just barely touching, and do the same thing for the other side. Drill it down into the wood, or if you have a tile, you'd have to put an anchor in there and drill it out with a tile bit or concrete bit. And also, that's something to take into consideration when you're doing a door height. Like I said, for ours, it worked best with about a 3/4 gap. If you go too high, you'd be catching just barely bottom of the door. So here's the handle. It's a really nice, solid iron handle. Doing the same thing with the tape, just getting it laid out, trying to get it. Basically, we have the same height as the rest of the doors for the middle height. And with this kit, they have a kind of inset kind of handle for the inside. So once the door is in, you kind of want to close the door and figure out where's the best spot for the handle. So when we close our door, the only way for you to get half of the handle when it's open and closed is to kind of do it just as you see it here. So when it's closed, you have some of that handle showing, and when it's all the way open, you have some of that handle showing. Maybe, well, I guess not really when you have it all the way open, but that's about as best as you can do. I don't see another placement you could do where it would be perfect for both ways. You just try and get it as best you can. So I get this thing laid out, get a little pilot hole drilled, and get my router. Got the bit in there, and basically just got to route out this recess. So just take out a little bit at a time, and check your depth, check how it fits, and that's pretty much it. Go ahead and install it after that.